Welcome to West Virginia Beer Roads, a podcast all about beer from a West Virginia perspective. I'm Erin McCoy, here with my podcast partner, Charles Bockway.
Well, we are gathered today for our pumpkin beer tasting, and it's the first time that our crew has ever done a pumpkin beer tasting. But anyway, I'm here with our co-host, Erin McCoy.
Hello. Thank you for getting us together for this unique tasting.
And our special pumpkin beer guest is Lynette Stewart.
I'm really excited to be here, and I'm so glad that you guys liked my idea of doing this.
Yes.
Yeah, well, listen, I know. We've drunk a lot of beer with Lynette through the years and, with our little local beer clubs and things and activities. And I tell you what, she's got a good palate. So, and I know she's a advocate or a fan of pumpkin beer. Isn't that true?
Oh, I love pumpkin beers. This is my favorite time of the year.
Yeah, now, pumpkin beers, one thing I learned long ago that not all pumpkin beer that you thought was a pumpkin beer really had pumpkin in it. And even they were like pumpkin spice beers or something, but just had the spices. Have anybody ever see that?
Yes, definitely have seen that.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. So it kind of surprised me. I think today, probably all the beers we're going to taste today are ones that actually not only have the spice, but have real pumpkin
Actual
in them.
pumpkin.
I hope so anyway. Who knows? I mean, several of them say they do. Some maybe don't. We'll find out, though, as we go through them. Well, we're going to go through these beers one by one. It's a perfect fall beer. They got the great color. They got the great flavors and spice that people like. And, hey, I'm a pumpkin pie fan, so, hey, I should be a pumpkin beer fan. Lynette, what about you?
I hate pumpkin pie. But I like pumpkin beer.
But just pumpkin beer.
Just pumpkin beers.
Yeah, Erin, what?
I don't like pumpkin pie or pumpkin beers, generally speaking. So that's going to be, or this is in general, all going to be really relatively new for me. So I'm interested to see which ones out of the six that we tried today that I prefer over the others.
I'm a much more of a pumpkin beer or a pumpkin pie fan than I am a pumpkin beer fan. I guess I like maybe to have just a nice malty beer with my pumpkin pie, but not one that tastes or competes with the flavor, of the pumpkin pie. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, I don't want to get it backwards. Anyway, we're wasting time here. I want to get us started today, and I think Erin McCoy, you are our first pumpkin beer presenter. What do you have?
I am, and I have Sam Adams Jacko, which is their pumpkin beer. Sam Adams is, of course, out of Boston, Massachusetts, which is a regional brewery. This one is described as medium amber with cinnamon and nutmeg aromas, obviously reminiscent of fresh pumpkin pie. One thing that is not listed on their website is actual pumpkin. So I was surprised by that. So I don't really know. Some people that have reviewed it have said that, yes, there's pumpkin in it, but from the actual Sam Adams website, they do not list pumpkin. They say that they list their hops, which is Hallertau yeast, ale yeast, two-row pale malt blend, and malted wheat as far as their malt. And of course, it's spiced, light, earthy. At least that's what we're expected to get out of this tasting today. We'll see if we get that. But they do not, in fact, list pumpkin. So I do not know if this has actual pumpkin in it. But we're going to see. Right off the bat, again, they describe it as a medium amber. To me, it is a full amber, if not somewhat copper.
Yeah. And I tell you, just sniffing it, I get the cinnamon.
Oh, you definitely get this.
You can smell the cinnamon straight out.
Very much so, and nutmeg too. I agree with that. Let's see what we think as far as taste. This one, I should say, it's a 4.4% ABV, so it's a little bit on the lighter end.
Sure.
I do not find it very overly malt forward. So
no, I get a lot of spice.
Only thing I get is spice.
Cinnamon.
There's nothing else.
Yeah.
It's mainly cinnamon for me.
A pretty light body, for sure. It's not thick at all. That 4.5?
4.4.
4.4.
And I'm not getting a ton of what I would expect to be pumpkin.
There's no pumpkin in this.
If there's pumpkin, they've hidden it well. But I won't say there's not. But since their website didn't say for sure, My vote might be it has little, if any.
I think it definitely has the pumpkin pie spices, but
Yeah,
I'm not sure
definitely.
about the pumpkin.
I'm not either. All right, so let's keep this one in mind. Save a little bit in your cup. We're going to maybe go back and kind of rank these in order. If we don't have them in a good order, we'll maybe go back and kind of summarize and talk about the ones we like the best at the end.
Sounds good.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Go ahead.
So, for any of you untapped people, this one is rated around 3.58 as far as an overall rating. And of course, there's a lot of check-ins with this beer. It's Sam Adams. It's very regionally available, so that's a pretty decent rating for this beer. Just
Yeah,
overall.
probably a national beer, I would imagine, every year.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've seen it before, but honestly, I don't remember ever having this, but I'm not one that seeks these beers out.
I've had this one, I think, 1 or 2 times before. It's not very memorable, in my opinion.
All right, so we'll wrap up our Jacko from Samuel Adams and move on to beer number 2. And I think, Lynette, you will be presenting this beer.
I have Saranac's Pumpkin Ale, which is out of Utica, New York. They say it is a hearty ale brewed with pumpkin, cinnamon, allspice, and ginger with a full body and amber collar. Mm-hmm. Which looking at this, to me it's very light.
Mm-hmm. A lot more amber though.
A lot more amber. Try to do a little. I don't get anything on the aroma, but that could just be me.
What's this ABV?
ABV on this one is 5.2%.
Yeah,
So light,
it's
definitely
pretty
light.
this is quite different from the first one, the Sam Adams. Even though it was lighter in ABV, this one's also much lighter in aroma.
It very much so. I'm not getting the cinnamon off this one that we got off the Sam Adams Jacko, for sure.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I get no allspice. I hardly get any
Wow, yeah.
the spice.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't get a lot of the cinnamon. That's the thing. And but the flavor. What are you getting from the flavor of this Saranac pumpkin?
I'm wondering. I feel like I'm getting a lot, but they said there's the ginger in it.
I think there is ginger, too.
I'm getting the ginger away on the back end.
I'm not
Yeah.
getting cinnamon or nutmeg or
No.
vanilla,
No.
which I would expect.
Which
Yeah, maybe a little vanilla on the back end for me, but it's not an upfront strong vanilla at all.
This is a much lighter mouthfeel.
So anybody get some pumpkin?
I get no pumpkin.
No pumpkin.
No pumpkin.
All right, number 2, first 2 we didn't.
But that one for sure says it's brewed with pumpkin.
This one does say off of their description
Yeah.
It's got
on their website.
Well, they could have
on
thrown
there.
one pumpkin in like 100 barrel
Like a
batch.
one
I mean,
pumpkin
it's
per-
like,
Yeah, they
you
said like reading the label in here, it says that it's delicious brew that tastes like pumpkin pie.
I'm
I
not
kinda
really getting the
disagree.
spices.
I say no.
I say it's pretty
Yeah.
bland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very very bland.
It's bland. It's more just like a beer that's got some flavor in it.
It's
I
just
don't know.
just a light amber beer kind
Yeah.
of. It's not even very malty.
No, I get no malt. To me, there's nothing behind this beer. It might say pumpkin on the label, but that's not a pumpkin beer.
I think that we're all in agreement with that.
Yep, pretty much. Sum that one up. Anyone? Well, I think we just summed it up. So I think time to move on to beer number 3, and that's my turn. So I have this Pumpkin Swirl by Rusty Rail Brewing. The sub-label on the can says it is a pumpkin spice roll ale. And, I like me some pumpkin spice roll. I like it better, I think, than pumpkin pie.
Listen, pumpkin rolls better than pumpkin pie.
People love those rolls.
Yeah. But
I tell
Again,
you-
not for me.
Yeah, but if so, anyway, I just thought I'd have to give it a try. Heck, even if I'm not a huge fan of these pumpkin beers. Well, it's made by Rusty Rail Brewing in Mifflinburg, Pennsylvania. I definitely had to look that one up because I wasn't sure where the heck is Mifflinburg, and I wasn't.
PA.
I mean, I'd heard the name Rusty Rail Brewing. This might be the first Rusty Rail beer I've ever had. Well, anyway, I looked up on the map, and it's a good ways north of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the state capital.
Okay.
And then it's way up there, and it's kind of right in the geographic center of,
Interesting.
like in the middle of Pennsylvania. So it's way up there. It's not, over to Philly or over to Pittsburgh. It's way up in the middle of just something. I don't know nothing else around it that I can see. Well, the beer label says it's brewed with pumpkin, lactose, vanilla, and spices. So for this one, I got a feeling even if we don't taste the pumpkin, it says it has pumpkin.
It ought to be
so
sweet.
we'll see what it's like. When I explored a bit further, I found out it does say it's made with real pumpkin, and it also has lactose in it.
Yeah, so it ought to be very sweet.
Yeah, vanilla, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, and cloves. So it's got all those pumpkin pie spices that you might think. And I'll have to admit, I've never made a pumpkin pie in my life, but I kind of like a fancy pumpkin spice roll.
Well, the can art, I know you listeners don't necessarily see that right away, but it is very swirly and it looks like a pumpkin swirl, and it's actually a nice can.
It's a really cool looking
Yeah.
logo. Like, I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Same.
we'll certainly have a picture on the website, on the story about this podcast. So I looked on Untappd. It's had over 4,800 ratings, which is pretty good for a small brewery, I think, in the middle of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And it rated a really solid 3.77. So
Wow.
let's give this beer a try and see how a 6%er goes.
This is medium color-wise.
I feel like,
copper. I feel like it's
Yeah.
a medium to light copper. It's
Yeah,
not dark at all.
It's not totally clear. I don't know if that's just chill haze or if that's just a little cloudiness.
I think
in
it's
this
chill haze.
Yeah, I guess it is pretty
Wow. Now that's a lot of ginger. And nutmeg, a lot.
That's nutmeg straight in my face.
Yes.
clear. Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
You don't. It's interesting because you get no aroma. It's very light.
Yeah, the
aroma-wise,
is
but
quite light, but man.
You definitely taste it, and I imagine that's going to get stronger as it warms up a little
Well, yeah,
bit.
it should. And when we tried the Sam Adams Jacko, it came out real cinnamony.
Mm-hmm.
This one comes out like something else.
Nutmeg and
You think
ginger
it's
for
nutmeg
me.
and ginger? It
I
probably is.
I was expecting it to be a little bit sweeter
Yeah,
than,
I get a little vanilla at the very finish.
Yeah,
though.
there's definitely
Way-
vanilla here.
and it's got
way,
a,
way on the back end.
it's
Yeah,
got a very
on the back
light
end.
mouthfeel, very
Yeah.
crisp.
Yeah, pumpkin swirl. So remember, they're trying to say it's like a pumpkin spice roll. Pumpkin spice roll is sweet. Let's face it.
Very much so.
And this beer isn't sweet at all.
No.
This-
What's the ABV on this one, Charles?
6?
6. So, okay, I would not, tasting this, when I said
I'd
light and refreshing, I would not have
Like,
given it a 6.
No, this would not be like a 6% beer. Like, I feel like this is more like 4.5.
Yes.
Like, I would love this around like a bonfire.
Yeah, campfire.
Like a campfire, like
Yeah.
drinking this,
Yeah.
like, would be perfect.
Break out the s'mores.
It's definitely a
Yes.
spiced beer, but it's because it lacks the cinnamon. I'm thinking it's more. I think it's less like pumpkin pie than because it doesn't have that cinnamon. I guess.
I would agree with that. But again, I'm not a big pumpkin pie eater, so that's a little harder for me to kind of opine on. But yeah, this one actually is interesting and surprising.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked it's 6% because it does not drink that way.
And you might think that it would have a little more sweetness because it does have that vanilla signature in the back end and that ginger or whatever it is up more up front. But it's not overpoweringly spicy, so it's not like appalling to me. I mean, I'm liking it.
No,
okay.
it's not a whole lot of spice.
Yeah.
It's the lightest of the three
It's
that we've
the-
tried so far.
Yeah, color.
Yes.
Very much so. Yes, the color is much lighter
Yeah.
than the other two.
Okay, and we're going to move this tasting on and go to beer number 4. And I think we're back to Lynette, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm really excited for this one. Okay, so the next beer that we're going to do is Dogfish Head Pumpkin Ale. They're out of Rehoboth Beach in Delaware. This beer first came out in 1994, which their website says it's a full-bodied brown ale with smooth hints of pumpkin, brown sugar, and spice.
Brown ale.
Oh.
Yes, this is a brown.
Okay.
Brown, because it has brown sugar? No, it's
No, they say it's like the base of this beer is a brown ale brewed
Interesting.
with
That is
pumpkin.
interesting.
because it's
Yeah.
not brown.
No, it definitely does
Okay.
not look brown.
Don't want to interrupt, but go ahead.
Fun story behind this beer. This is the beer that actually got me into craft beer.
Oh.
So, got a 6-pack of this many moons ago, and this is what turned me into like a craft beer nut. And I love every year with this beer. Their cans, every season, it's a new logo. It's a new artist that's on this. Like, it's one of the reasons why I love it so much.
So they do an art series.
They do an
with
art
this specific seasonal.
Yes, with every like spring,
I think
summer, fall, winter, they have their artwork's different.
it's interesting that a seasonal got you turned on to craft, because you don't hear that often, because they're so unique.
Well,
you know.
Yeah, and I will say kudos to Dogfish Head and their pumpkin ale for getting Lynette into craft beer, because without her, it would have been a lot less fun around the Charleston, West Virginia craft beer market.
That's for sure.
Well, thank you both.
So let's talk about this beer a little more.
I feel like it's pretty light. Look, it's pretty light collared. I know we were talking about Untapped earlier. For this, there was about 3.74 rating. It's rated about 204,000 people. So it's a lot.
Yeah, it's
I feel
popular
like.
beer.
Well,
I
and
imagine
it's
it's been
certainly
around.
been,
Yeah,
she said since 94, yeah.
94.
So that's quite a long time. But aroma, I'm not getting a lot of spice or sweet or really anything.
I get a little bit of spice on the nose. Just a little bit, not a whole
Yeah.
lot.
I don't know if it's gingerish or nutmeg, maybe.
I think it's a little bit of nutmeg, but
yeah.
See, I'm leaning more towards Charles. I feel like it's a little bit of, when I taste it, a little bit of ginger on the back end. Nothing sweet though. No cinnamon, no vanilla, no clove for me.
No, nothing strong like the cinnamon or clove.
What's the ABV on this? I'm sorry if you already said it.
it was 7%.
Oh,
This is a
another surprising
This
one.
is a 7%
Yeah,
that
it
drinks
drinks
like
really
a
easy.
5.
This drinks,
Drinks
easily
easy.
like a 5. So yeah, be careful out there.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. And it's a really nice drinking beer. And probably because, maybe I'm not as fond of ones that have a lot of strength of flavor. I'm not sure. We'll find out. But no, this one is lighter and very balanced overall. It's nice drinking, amber ale.
I think she's really easy drinking.
Oh, very much so. It's super similar in color to the pumpkin swirl that we just had.
Well, guys, anything else we want to say about
Oh, wait, does this one-
before we wrap this up?
Does it say real pumpkin? Did
Yes.
you say that
Yes.
there's actual
It
pumpkin
says-
in it?
Well, they say smooth hints of pumpkin, brown sugar, and spice.
Hints.
I'm assuming
It doesn't say.
it doesn't specifically say there's pumpkin in there,
Yeah, but
but what says on the can, it says brown ale brewed with pumpkin and spices.
yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
If it
So-
says that, it is.
Then you're good.
So it is.
I just think that, the reason that people put so much spice, whether it be a pumpkin pie or in a lot of pumpkin beers, is because pumpkin, when you cook with it, doesn't have a lot of strong flavor.
No.
Sure.
I'm guessing that.
Well, and that's signature of a dish or a drink or whatever it is you're doing with your roll, like we were talking about the Swiss roll or the pumpkin roll. That's signature of that particular thing for fall.
And we're going to be moving on up in our pumpkin beer tasting today.
Woo woo.
And Aaron, you are back on. Aaron McCoy.
So we have, with my introduction, we have Pumpkin, which is an imperial pumpkin ale, and it's out of Southern Tier Brewing Company, and they're a regional brewery, mainly out of New York. This one in particular, for me, it's being an imperial. I'm impressed with that. It's got an 8.6 ABV, so it is a big boy as far as that goes. And we talked a bit about ratings. In this particular beer, it has a whopping 268,000 check-ins on Untapped, and it averages 3.93. So this one should be pretty robust, I would imagine. When we first poured it, it is in that kind of mild copper hue. It's definitely not amber. It's very light, which to me is surprising because at 8.6, I would kind of expect it to be a little bit darker. I'm not really sure why, but let's see what we get on the nose. Not a lot, a little spice.
It gets a little bit of spice.
A little bit. That's
definitely
it. Not sweet, not bready. The description of this beer from their website is pumpkin puree and pie spices, multi-bready. They say that the cinnamon dominates with nutmeg with vanilla in the background. On the nose, I'm not really getting that. I'm definitely getting nutmeg, but that's about all.
Yeah, I think it's a little cold, probably. I imagine that a beer in this ABV range would
Do better as
do
it
better,
warms up.
warmer
Yeah.
a little. I mean, like more like 55 or 60, something like that. This one's definitely still pretty cool.
It is still pretty cool.
Yeah. You just get nutmeg on the nose. This is probably Pumice King, man. Like, this is probably, to me, in my opinion, this is the best pumpkin beer that's out there.
Yeah, and this is one, of course, we've had here in West Virginia for a number of years, and
But it's not bitter at all. It's just, and it doesn't come across as heavy in alcohol taste. I mean, it all around. I don't get, like I said, for me, it's just nutmeg. Maybe a tiny finish of vanilla, but other than that, I'm not. The pumpkin's not yelling at me.
no. I mean, we know it has pumpkin in it.
Mm-hmm. Pumpkin puree. This one is the lightest that we've had so far, and the highest ABV that we've had so far, which I find interesting because if you look at it, it looks like a light beer that you would get just at a bar somewhere, but
Right.
it's not. It's it's a big boy.
Not light in taste or in ABV, right?
Yeah, it's like, how about 3 or 4 of these, and it's gonna
Oh yeah,
creep up on you.
You definitely need to Uber home. For sure. Yeah.
I agree. All right. Well, I think for our final beer of this round of 6 pumpkin spiced ales that we're trying today, I have Shipyard Brewing's Smashed Pumpkin Ale with natural flavors. And let's hope that those natural flavors include some real pumpkin. And I'll tell you what, this is a big one. We thought the Pumpkin was a big one at 8.6. This one's 9.0 ABV. So I'd say it promises to be a big one, but we'll see. Honestly, I'm not sure. I didn't even know we still got Shipyard beers in West Virginia, but I found this on the beer rack down at Drug Emporium in Charleston, West Virginia. And hey, I just know that Shipyard is a storied brewery. They've been around since like 1993 or 4. They're a brewer. This guy Alan Pugsley is kind of famous in the industry. Started that among the early New England craft brewers. And Shipyard's been around for a while. And I know we've had their beers here in West Virginia, off and on at least. And I remember their old pumpkin, well, I shouldn't say old, I'm sure they still make it. This Pumpkinhead Ale was the big one, but it's like a 4.5% beer. So when I found
like half.
this, yeah,
It's like a
smashed,
Pepsi. It's its little brother.
Yeah.
I found this Smash Pumpkin at 9. I'm thinking, holy cow, I don't remember their beers being that high, but that's because the other one isn't. But anyway, on the label, when it says ale with natural flavors, I'm kind of guessing that that means maybe that's just the spice in it. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I really love the fact that the can does list the base ingredients. This is one that, unlike a lot of other beers that you can look at the can, you can't find much about what's in it. This one does say it has pale malt, Munich malt, whole wheat, and then it lists the hops as being Willamette, whatever that is, Willamette, and Saphir or however you say, Saphir hops. I know it's a German
Interesting.
hop. But anyway, Untapped, this beer gets a solid 3.68 rating on 61,000 plus reviews, and that's pretty good, and it's been around for a while. I don't think it's a new beer at all. So let's give it a try and see what we think.
It's very dark. I think.
I feel like it's the darkest beer we've had.
I think it's going to be kind of a very close contest with the Sam Adams, the very first one that we had. But I agree, it is very dark. It looks like it's going to be very much more heavy body as far as mouthfeel goes. It's not very clear. It's definitely a bit cloudy.
It's probably the least clear, although it's not truly cloudy, but there's definitely a haze in that.
There
beer.
is.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as aroma, is that pumpkin? Again,
well,
I'm
guessing.
not a huge pumpkin fan.
I think it's like a light pumpkin aroma.
But there's nothing sweet.
There's nothing sweet. There's
no
no
cinnamon.
There's no spice.
Yeah. It's not
No
heavily
nutmeg.
spiced, at least from the way it aroma or the flavor that I'm getting.
Oh yeah, that's very pumpkin-y.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And that does actually to me taste like pumpkin pie.
Well, there you go. This one must really have the pumpkin in it, and maybe more so than any of the other 5.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I feel like I can taste the alcohol in this one.
Yeah, I definitely
It's
can.
a little. For me, it's a
I
little
can.
boozy.
It is.
I don't feel
but
like
I
it's.
You're not getting that. Well,
No,
that's cool.
I'm not getting the booze.
And
out
I'm
of
not
this.
thinking it's overly alcohol, but I
No.
do get a little heat from that 9%. A little bit.
Maybe at the beginning, but it doesn't finish that way for me. It's just it's just
like
pumpkin.
It's like a straight punch in the face,
And then-
and then it smooths
Yeah.
out.
So
it does smooth out, but it is heavier.
body wise, it's definitely got more body. It's a thicker type of beer. It's got
For sure.
again a little touch of sweetness that I didn't think we found in the others. This one, I mean, I wouldn't call it a sweet beer at all, but I definitely get a little within that heavier body, that
Well-
maltiness. There's a little bit of more sweetness coming through to me.
There's for me as well, but not sweet in the way of what we were describing some of the other beers that we tasted, like cinnamon and or vanilla. I don't really get that out of this.
Well,
like, it's sweet from the pumpkin,
Sweet from or the malt,
but not the
probably.
spices.
I would say
Sure.
from
Right.
the malt,
Sure.
but whatever. Yeah, exactly. None of these beers are what I would call sweet beer. I mean,
No.
they're not like a dessert beer. So these would pair well, probably any of them, with a sweeter dessert, whether it be pumpkin pie or a pumpkin roll. Even
Yep.
they would be fine with
Oh,
them
you
because-
pumpkin lovers, you can double fist it with your pumpkin latte.
I mean, listen, I love me a good pumpkin spice latte. Not gonna lie.
I know it is a big thing. I do know that. I just like my coffee just
Yep.
plain and black and
Some pumpkin,
strong.
Yep, some pumpkin cold brew. Come on.
Well, these have been some really interesting beers and also different, not only ABV, like, so we went from 4.4 all the way up to 9% out of these 6 beers. And, again, we will have a picture of them at the end of this, but color wise, the one that's 4.4% and the one that we finished with at 9% are the closest in color, which kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Well, color comes from ingredients, and it can come from a more of a toasted malt, and it just could be that the Sam Adams put a little toasted malt in there that was more colorful to start with.
Well, they definitely did.
And it's not having to do with the flavor too much, because you can put some color in a beer without adding a lot of flavor.
Sure,
That's
based
the
on-
thing.
yeah.
Because not all the malts add a lot of flavor. They can also, there are a lot of malts that are just made to add a little color.
Yeah, based on how you've toasted them. I think they've all surprised me in that. And again, as I said when we first started this, I've not really ventured much into pumpkin beers. It's just not been my thing. So this has been kind of eye-opening. I genuinely thought, oh gosh, I'm probably not going to really like these beers very much since I'm not a big pumpkin fan. But I've been pleasantly surprised. So for those of you that think like me and you don't really like your pumpkin pie, go get some of these beers.
Yeah, this is the season for spiced beers. You start now here in October with these pumpkin ales. They'll hang in till Thanksgiving. Might be a good beer to pair with your pumpkin pie and stuff at a Thanksgiving dinner. Then we move on into the Christmas season with some of the other spiced beers and spiced ales, which are much more done for the winter. And a lot of those are winter warmers. They're a little stronger, overall in flavor. None of these, except for maybe this last one, was a little stronger in flavor, but most of the others were fairly light overall. Yeah.
So the 2 beers that I introduced, so the Sam Adams and the Southern Tier, they on their websites, they say that they're seasonally available and list specifically August through October. Charles just said they're still going to be around in November. I think that they will be, but that's when I think their main distribution is during those times. So they're super short seasonally. It's 3 months, so if you want to try them, you got to get out there and try them because we're already in October.
Yeah. I mean, the Pumpkin lasts, and I think a lot, there are people that save pumpkin for a year because it's higher ABV. I think if they're, 8.5%, 9% type beers, you can age those a bit and see if they get better for your taste, then enjoy them a year later.
In my opinion, pumpkin normally it's the best in like 2 to 3 years after it's made. You keep the bottle and then you go back to it 2 to 3 years later, and to me that's like the perfect taste of an aged pumpkin.
After it's been cellared.
After it's been cellared a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I wouldn't certainly recommend aging these 4.5%, 5%, 6% beers, but the stronger ones,
Oh, sure.
yeah, they might. A lot of people do think they improve with a year or two of age.
Well, this has really been enlightening for me in particular. I'm shocked because, Lynette, it was a great idea to do this. But again, I just have not had enough experience with these. So this for me has been really fantastic. I hope some of our listeners get some good information from us and go out and try these beers.
Yeah. And Lynette, any of these 6 that we tried today stand out to you?
Pumpkin is always going to stand out to me as the best. I'm sorry. They have a festival every year at all their locations. I've probably drank hundreds of pumpkins. And with pumpkins too, like it's just not only pumpkin. They do a different seasonal variant of that every year. And I know this year's is a caramel pumpkin, which I haven't had yet. It is in my refrigerator at home. I'm waiting for a nice cool night to drink it. But, they do have different every year. I think last year's was like a chai latte pumpkin variant. So you just, check those out. I know they're hard to get around Charleston a little bit. It took me a while to find a bottle of it.
And they do have these pumpkin kind of release or whatever you want to call it, parties at their brewery outlets, like in Pittsburgh and Cleveland.
It's Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Charlotte. They do they do 2 big ones up in New York. Mm-hmm. I've been to that festival several times in Pittsburgh. It's just everything you can imagine pumpkin theme, and it's fabulous.
And again, that is our next to largest ABV. So that one came in at 8.6%. But it sounds like it's a lot of fun, and I'm excited. I enjoyed these tonight.
Yeah. And I was kind of surprised, so I went out to shop for these pumpkin beers, and so we could have this tasting. There weren't a lot on the shelves anymore. I'm not sure if that's cut back because I'm not normally looking for them. But I mean, the 6 that we found was about the only 6 that were out there in our Charleston, West Virginia market.
And none of which were, for our regular listeners, we typically focus on West Virginia craft, and we clearly had no West Virginia craft breweries in our tasting lineup tonight.
Well, I will say, though, that just recently, Weather Ground did have a pumpkin-flavored beer come out. So I just couldn't get it today for the tasting. But anyway, hey, so Weather Ground does make one. Sorry we couldn't compare it to these national products. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up. Go out and find these pumpkin beers. I know the ones we tasted today are widely available, at least in the metro markets around West Virginia, if you're listening in, and give these pumpkin beers a chance.
Definitely do. I echo that for sure, since this is a new thing for me. So
all right. So thank you, Lynette Stewart, and of course my co-host Aaron McCoy for joining us on this pumpkin beer tasting on West Virginia Beer Roads.
Cheers! Happy pumpkin drinking.
Thank y'all for having me. It's been an amazing evening.
This brings us to the close of another podcast. Remember, you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast host. Thank you for listening to West Virginia Beer Roads.
West Virginia Beer Roads is a production of BrilliantStream.com.